Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and good afternoon to all those tuning in from Doha. Good morning for all those tuning in from abroad. My name is Daniel Hamadi, and I'm the Strategic Content Specialist at the U.S. Embassy here in Doha. And on behalf of the Embassy, I'd like to wish everyone a Ramadan Mubarak and a happy Arab American Heritage Month. So today we have a special guest, entrepreneur, chef, and business leader, Amanda Saab. She's here to speak about her halal food and entrepreneurial experience in the United States. Thank you, Amanda, for joining us. Happy to have you on the call with us. So today's program affords us the opportunity to explore the growing halal market in the United States and how it fuels entrepreneurship. But before we hand over the mic to Amanda, I would like to invite my colleague, Cultural Affairs Specialist Tracy Castro, to give us the opening remarks. Good afternoon, Tracy. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. Good afternoon to all those tuning in live or watching on their own time. Ramadan Kareem. Today's event with chef and entrepreneur Amanda Saab falls under the holy month of Ramadan and Arab American Heritage Month. Ramadan is a time of self-reflection and an opportunity for communities to come together at iftars to break the fast, bringing some of the best cuisines from around the world. Like in Qatar, access to halal meals is a reality for Americans, Muslim tourists, and international students during Ramadan and throughout the year. The United States is fortunate to have Muslim communities that are diverse as our country, with many tracing their ancestry to the nation's founding. In fact, nearly 4 million American Muslims reside in the United States, representing a diverse array of backgrounds, cultures, and traditions. Muslim Americans and Arab Americans are an important part of the nation's fabric and have contributed to every field. During today's discussion, we highlight the importance of access to halal meals and business opportunities for Arab Americans who form part of the Muslim American community. With that, we welcome Amanda Saab, a multifaceted Arab American leader who will share her passion for halal food and fostering sustainable business growth. We look forward to hearing about your experiences, Amanda. Thank you again for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the program and submit your questions on the Facebook Live.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen so that we can have some visuals. Normally when I'm presenting, pre-COVID times, we love to reminisce and think about talking to an audience that could also see us. But now it's me and my screen, and I'm just gonna imagine the energy and excitement from the crowd. So again, good afternoon, Ramadan Mubarak to everyone who is tuning in. My name is Amanda Saab, and I'm so excited to be joining you to talk about my experience in halal food as an American Muslim as it relates to entrepreneurship in my current role and in previous roles and life experiences. So I want to start by laying the foundation about Muslims in America. There is some discretion and misunderstandings between historians about when the first Muslims arrived in the land that we now call America. Some date it back to the 1500s, the Ottoman Empire, arriving someplace near New Mexico. Others declare that Muslims arrived in the shores while America was established during the slave trade. Today, there are approximately 3.5 million Muslims in America, and we make up about 1% of the overall population. So it's a very small number of Muslims in the country, but we have definitely made our impact and have made our impressions here. Like many countries experiencing civil war, my family originates in Lebanon, and when there was civil war, there was opportunity to come to Dearborn. So the civil war in Lebanon began in 1975, and at that time there were a lot of Lebanese Muslims coming from southern Lebanon, and they arrived in Dearborn for jobs and opportunity. Both my grandfathers on my mother's side and my grandfather's side were able to come to Dearborn around that time and earn jobs in the automotive industry, manufacturing and automotive. So they were able to work for General Motors, Chrysler, and Ford. Dearborn is a very special place, not only because it is my hometown, but also because it's home to one of the largest Arab American communities in the United States. It's become a hub for culture, for food, for entertainment. It's home to the Arab American National Museum, Such a beautiful, incredible collective of people, spaces, and things. Dearborn is also home to one of the first Arab American Muslim mayors in a large city, and that is Abdullah Hamoud, who was elected in 2021. So I'm proud to have an Arab and Muslim mayor in my city. You also see on your screen a photo of a large group of people gathering at night. This is the Suhoor Ramadan festival. As we know, suhoor is the pre-dawn meal that we all enjoy before we begin our fast. And in Dearborn, a collective group of people have come together to put on the Suhoor festival. So after mosque and iftar and all of that, people can join and gather. There are over 50 entrepreneurs that are selling their goods and food in the Suhoor festival. In an opening weekend alone this year, Suhoor Festival 2022, there were over 50,000 attendees, both who are Muslim and non-Muslim. We even had visitors from out of state and out of country. So Dearborn is accessible to Canada. So we're only 30 minutes away from the Windsor Bridge, making it an opportune place for those who are living in Canada to come visit Dearborn and experience the food and culture here. The Arab American National Museum opened in 2005. It's on Michigan Avenue in Schaefer, and this location is significant to me because just kitty corner to that is where my family owned a grocery store for over 35 years. And I still remember when the Arab American National Museum opened, our family went. We were also very excited. It was a family affair, and we continue to visit and see the new exhibits, explore the new arts and culture centers that they have. There's an annex and a theater where they do screenings of film and movies. And the museum has really shaped and become a hub for preserving culture of Arab Americans. And it's really an exciting place and exciting for me because it's in our own backyard. As Tracy had mentioned, not only is this month the holiest month of Ramadan, it is also Arab American Heritage Month, and it's been declared as such in 2021, but it was first introduced by Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who represents Dearborn. She introduced that legislation a few years ago to give Arab Americans a cultural month, like there are so many months in the United States celebrating food and heritage. And this pita bread is actually my grandmother's recipe, and she taught me how to make it, so I was able to capture that and demonstrate it here. So I want to spend a significant amount of time talking about halal food and its accessibility in the United States. So as I mentioned in previous slides, a lot of Lebanese Muslims came to America, came to Dearborn area around 1975 when the Civil War broke out. As you see, Saad Wholesale Meats was established in 1976 because it was immediately declared as a need for the Saad family that they didn't have accessibility to halal meats. So they have become a long-standing establishment and pillar in the community with distribution across the United States, including one of their brands under Zabiha Halal, Sharifa Halal, providing lunch meats. So the story goes, the father was talking to his children about how school was going, and they said, everything is going well. However, we do not have, the same lunch meats that our classmates have. So the father, being the butcher that he was, coming from Lebanon, having those skills, said, I want to ensure that my children have the lunch meats that they want, like their classmates, and began the Sharifa Halal brand, and it is now international, also serving Canada. I was also fortunate to meet the founders of Crescent Foods. They're in the Chicago area, where there's also a large, significant Muslim community. And Crescent Foods also began around the 1980s, and their distribution now spans into mainstream stores like Kroger's and Walmart's. I'm not sure of your equivalents, but it makes it so much easier. You don't have to go to a specialty store where you can get your halal chickens and meat and lamb just packaged right next to all the other meats. And that's national, which is very exciting and makes halal meat so accessible to the almost 4 million Muslims living in America. And Hearty Foods takes a special twist on halal products, providing halal bone broths and collagens for all of those who are health conscious and want to add some extra collagen to their morning smoothies, who want to use gelatin in their halal baking. That's actually how I was introduced to Hearty Foods, and they're located on the West Coast in California. So you see wherever there's a hub for Muslims, there's a brand associated that's making the products mainstream. And like these three big players, there are thousands of smaller players who are also providing halal goods and services to their customers. So I want to take you to my entrepreneurship experience and my childhood, my background, and everything that I've learned over the years. And that began, as I talked about, on Michigan Avenue in Schaefer, on Schaefer Road, in my grandparents' grocery store called Pesach Brothers Market. So my grandparents were actually immigrated here in the 1960s, and in 1968, they purchased Pesach Brothers from a group of immigrant brothers who had run the store previously for about 40 years in Detroit, and then located to Dearborn. And as we were discussing, Dearborn has become a hub for all these Lebanese immigrants coming to the US. So while my grandfather was working at Chrysler, my grandmother said, you know, I need to help and contribute. And my uncles were like, and my father were like, yes, we also want to be working. So they purchased Pesach Brothers Market. And there's young Amanda working at the cash register. And you see all the spices behind me. And that was really my introduction to entrepreneurship and running a small business, where I learned about different ingredients and products, halal food also, but also connecting with a customer and really developing that. Like most immigrant children, my parents had high expectations for my education. So I completed undergraduate school at Wayne State University in Detroit and went on to graduate school to complete my master's in social work. And I began my career as a medical social worker working in the neonatal intensive care unit. And one of the things that was always driven home to us, repeated time and time again to us as we were working through our graduate studies, was this importance of self-care. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? Doing really heavy work, taking on the situations and problems that other people are working through, connecting them to resources, working through systemic issues can be really heavy. So in grad school, our professors would say, you know, you need to have an outlet, you need to have an outlet. And I knew that, you know, running marathons was not going to be my outlet. While I loved being physically active, you know, running more than 4 miles just wasn't in me. So I learned about creative blogging through food blogs and food photography. And I really wanted a way to capture the creative things that I'd come up with, taking my mother's ashta recipe, for example, and putting it inside of a cream puff, a profiterole. So really blending culture and food. So we have like a French style pastry with the ashta that's, you know, so prevalent, especially during the months of Ramadan. We love it. And just sharing my photography on Instagram. And that's what led to Amanda's Plate. We're like, oh, this is incredible. We want to learn more. And that led to me working with national brands and providing different insights and recipes to them as well. Don't want to scream past Gordon Ramsay and MasterChef. That's a significant part. So as I was blogging, I became more interested in food. And because I had that previous experience working in a small business around food and ingredients, I always had such a love and appreciation for it. So I was watching MasterChef in 2014. There was a open call for auditions. Are you the next Master Chef? Do you have what it takes? And I was like, absolutely. Like, I have what it takes. I love cooking. I love baking. I can absolutely do this. So I went to an open audition. At the time, I was living in Seattle, Washington, and the audition was in California. So we went down and I prepared my baklava cheesecake, and the judges loved it. And little did I know that I would become the first woman in hijab to appear on an American cooking show. It wasn't until Eater ran this article and people were just texting, messaging, emailing, calling. And I was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? When I set out to compete on MasterChef, my intention was to make really great food and to expose people to Arab American cookies that were just as great chefs as everyone else around us. And this really took off. And what a unique experience to be able to cook for Gordon Ramsay and for him to love kind of my twists and takes on classic recipes. During my audition for the Battle for the Apron, I made kefta, my grandmother's lamb kefta. And when I told Gordon I loved, you know, this recipe and this is what I was making, he said, oh, fantastic. I love a good kefta. I hope yours is just as good as the ones I've had in London. So I definitely felt the pressure in that. But also in having these conversations, the importance of visibility and talking about the things that we love and enjoy, that we're just as American as everybody else, that we contribute to society in such great ways, and that our food is so amazing. However, while being on a national platform, I received several comments that kind of took me back, you know, hate-filled comments. It's expected. There are internet trolls. We're living in a post-9/11 world. People's views of American Muslim are, you know, so limited and skewed because they don't necessarily have the exposure to meeting with American Muslims because we only make up 1% of the population. So at that time, I decided, you know, I want to do something. I need to take action. And what better way than with food? So I began Dinner with Your Muslim Neighbor, inviting my neighbors, colleagues, strangers on the internet. I literally would put a post up on Facebook and say, who'd like to come to dinner with their Muslim neighbor? And really just have an intimate gathering of people who are willing to engage and learn and discuss what it's like to be an American Muslim. But also we're discussing kind of taboo topics. We're talking about religion, we're talking about politics, and we're talking about race. And to date, we've hosted over 30 dinners across 5 states. The pandemic put a pin in all of this. I was hoping to get back to it this Ramadan, but I'm thinking summer would be an opportune time so we can gather outside and have a picnic with your Muslim neighbor. And I really want to highlight the significance and importance of like taking ownership of the narrative. You know, I saw something I did not like. People were saying things I did not agree with that were not true. So I was able to find a way using my outlet, my passion, the things that I love to control that narrative. And I really want to highlight American Muslim women, especially those who are wearing the hijab, because we're so visible in our communities and we stick out. So Noor Tagore became the first journalist in the United States to on a news station to be wearing the hijab. And in 2016, Ibtihaj Muhammad became the first US Olympian wearing the hijab, and Rashida Tlaib, first Congresswoman of Palestinian and Muslim origins to become into the US Congress. So all of these women have definitely paved the way. And because it's still in our lifetime, these are like women of first. And I was also a woman of becoming a first on the platform in my path. So to anyone watching who's ever been hesitant and doubted themselves and thought, I don't know if I can do it, I haven't seen it. You just have to pursue your passion, pave that way, and do the best that you can, and let your passion carry you through that. So given kind of the background of everything that I had experienced after MasterChef and Dinner with Your Muslim Neighbor, once I was on maternity leave, once I had my daughter Hannah, who you see here in the photo, I took my home baking business. I was bored on maternity leave. I know it sounds crazy. So I began baking for hire, and it's something that I've always done for my family since I was really young, baking cakes for everyone's birthday. On Thanksgiving, I was always in charge of making the pies. So with a large family like ours, where I have 30 first cousins all in the area, you know, when I'd make the Thanksgiving pies, it's like 10 pies for Thanksgiving. So I had some experience in high volume baking. And in 2017, in May 2018, I opened Butter Bear Shop after just 6 months of baking. It was this MVP model, kind of quick, applying this quick model of entrepreneurship and just being really agile. So I was able to go from home, just kind of baking, like, hey, I'm baking, to a brick and mortar location. And we had an incredibly successful run. Unfortunately, like many businesses, at the start of pandemic, I decided to close and use my experience and services in different ways. It is something I'm still considering exploring in the future, just not at this time. So that's led me to where I am today. And that is in a business support organization. So taking all my experience of being a small business owner, of running an e-commerce shop, of growing up in a small business, to serving other small businesses in the area. So I currently serve as the Director of Small Business Services at TechTown Detroit. We are a business support organization and entrepreneurial hub in the city. And I focus on small businesses with our Retail Bootcamp program, which is a 12-week program for those who are interested in opening up a brick and mortar location. We also have the shop, which is my first introduction to TechTown was actually as a small business owner participating in the shop. And I was able to be at TechTown's co-working space as Butter Bear Shop in 2018 as part of their shop program. So it's an opportunity for entrepreneurs and small businesses to sell their product to a new customer base at TechTown in the building, which is a beautiful historic building. And I also oversee the 313 Strong program, which is a 6-month business consulting program for existing brick and mortar locations that are in the city of Detroit, Highland Park, and Hamtramck. So I'm part of an incredible team who works to service small businesses. We also have a tech program, as the name implies, TechTown. But I stick to the small business side because that's my area of expertise and understanding. I'd love for us to stay connected and for us to continue to talk about food, entrepreneurship, halal food in America. This is me and my daughter Hannah baking together, one of our favorite things to do. So I'd love to remain in touch. My contact information is here. I'm accessible online. Instagram is probably the easiest way, also via email or on my website. I just have some references and we can share these with everyone as well. And if anyone has any questions, I'd love to begin taking them.
Great, Amanda, thank you so much for that wealth of information and your experience. Really interesting to hear all the availabilities of halal food in the United States. Very interesting to know the different companies and how they got started. So thank you for that, that insight. For those watching, you're welcome to submit your questions on our Facebook live post. We'll share them with Amanda. Amanda, if you don't mind, we have actually a few questions we can get started with.
Wonderful, thank you.
So one of the questions we have is, what advice would you give someone thinking of starting a home-based food business?
I think entrepreneurs and small business owners are some of the most incredible people in the world. You're sharing a gift and a passion, and you're putting out a product that didn't exist before you. So definitely do it. So one, start, but always come up with a plan. Ensure that you do have a business plan in place. Not that you have to stick to it, but to have all the tools that you need in place in order to scale. Because if your hope is to take it from home base to brick and mortar, how are you going to scale not only your recipes, but also your operations? Are you going to also have an e-commerce platform? Omnichannel is definitely the way to go. So even if you're selling from home or starting from home, think about the ways that you can be accessing new customers online. I think if the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that we need to be agile and flexible, but also accessible in ways that are adaptable to what's going on in the economy and in the world. So definitely start your plan and just do it. Don't be too committed and tied to one thing. If you launch a product and it doesn't work, try another product. maybe you need to go through a rebrand. And that's why I love, you know, MVP, the minimal viable product. When I started Butter Bear Shop, I started with one product, and that was my salted brown butter chocolate chip cookies. So that was my minimum viable product. I know it's like tech related, you know, MVP, but I was like, let me see, can I sell this one cookie? And when I was, you know, selling out within 30 minutes of launching, I was like, okay, this, you know, there's a product here, there's a business here. How can I scale on that? How can I grow on that?
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that. You touched on a very key point, actually, which leads us to our next question, scalability. When would be a good time to transition from home business to an actual brick and mortar or an office?
When you're selling out and you have no more space to be baking from home, if that's your business, if you're shipping a product from home and you have, you know, no more space to be shipping out, but really ensure that your numbers match, because it is a huge leap, especially here in the US, to go from home-based to brick and mortar. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in investments potentially, in upgrading equipment, operations, employee costs, insurance, all the things that come with scaling from just a home-based business to having that brick and mortar location. I think it's also really important that people ask themselves, do I want a brick and mortar location? Is the reason I started a home-based business was because I like the flexibility of being able to stay home with my kids. I don't have to be in a place from certain hours. You know, it's low overhead costs. Everything is already paid for. So these are questions that we actually help entrepreneurs answer in our retail boot camp during those 12 weeks. We really dive deep and understand, is it even needed in the market? Where in the market do you know? Do you really understand your customer, really understanding those demographics? So there's some research and legwork that you have to do, but I think that's the fun part. It's like learning, does this idea work? If not, you know, we're a little bit of scientists, we're experimenting, we're seeing what works and how we can make a profitable business out of something we found in the market.
Yeah, exactly. And also now that online is the go-to method, people don't usually go to brick and mortar as much anymore. Maybe it is a better idea to think about that first, you know, how to scale your business online before you actually consider brick and mortar.
Definitely. And we were so fortunate at TechTown, we partnered with the Detroit Pistons, our NBA team, and Shopify. And Shopify is an e-commerce platform. I used that for Butter Bear during my early days, you know, as our shipping and purchasing platform. And they have so many tools, so many plugins, so many things for you to utilize on Shopify. It's such a great tool and it's so accessible. You don't need to, you know how to code. You don't need to be an expert in product photography or content writing. You can launch your business online, and, you know, the barrier to entry is pretty minimal. It doesn't cost a lot to have an e-commerce shop these days versus, you know, when I first started with amandasplate.com 8 years ago, like trying to learn WordPress and adding all these plugins, it costs significantly more. So the advancements continue, the ease of accessibility and the barriers to entry are minimized. So I strongly encourage people to just experiment, even if it's, you know, what I have this pen, you know, like is there a market for pens that have like the soft tip? If you have a touch screen laptop, can I sell this? Just to get in the habit of really, you know, selling a product, identifying your target customer base, and understanding kind of the needs in the market. Yeah,
great. Okay, another topic that we have, another question is about the halal food industry in general. Would you say it's a growing industry in the States? Are there investment opportunities actually in this field?
Absolutely. I love this question because it covers so many areas of passion for me, both in entrepreneurship and as a blogger and recipe developer. So there's definitely growing interest in the halal food space. So to give an example, I'm primarily known for my baking, and some of the major vanilla extract companies have recently reached out. As we know, most vanilla extract, some of the best in the world, is made with alcohol, and that's not halal. It's not certified halal, so it's inaccessible to many Muslim bakers in the US. So one of the biggest, Nielsen Massey, actually reached out and said, hey, can you test these non-alcoholic vanilla extracts for us, as we want to launch to cater to specifically to our American Muslim audience. So not only is there a growing demand and but brands are also recognizing the Muslim buying power in America. It's estimated to be over $1 billion a year. So brands are all, non-Muslim brands are also interested in creating halal products to appease to their Muslim customers and their Muslim base. And as we see, you know, a lot of times things are certified with like vegan or organic. Now we're seeing the halal certification accessible on so many more products. And there are definitely investment opportunities. There's significant space for investment in the halal food industry. We talked about the food festival that takes place in Dearborn. So it was on hold during the pandemic, but after 2 years of not taking place, in the opening weekend, there were over 55,000 people in one place, all eager to purchase and buy food. So, you know, you take a model like that and replicate it in Muslim cities, in cities where there's a large Muslim population across the US. And it's such a great way to provide access to meals that normally aren't. When I lived in Seattle on the West Coast, most restaurants are closed by 10 p.m. Because the Muslim population there is even smaller than in the Midwest. So good luck trying to find, you know, a midnight meal or suhoor meal on, you know, in Seattle. But once you have creative entrepreneurs who are really thinking outside the box, even though the population of Muslims is smaller, we're a captive audience and we're willing to engage and buy the products and services that we need.
Okay, great. Okay, can you talk to us about risk taking? And how does that factor into your decisions? Should people be more risk averse or risk takers in this business specifically?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially because we know that food-based businesses are amongst the highest failure rates just because the margin is so small, especially with increasing food costs. But I've always been somewhat of a risk taker. It's the only way to be innovative, to be creative. For me, it's really pushing myself. And I think that comes from, you know, my childhood and just seeing my grandparents and my parents coming to a new place, not having, you know, family, not having that community and building that for themselves. So if you're able to, and you have a high risk tolerance, I definitely say go for it 100% of the time. And we talked about, you know, different ways you can kind of ease into entrepreneurship. You don't have to go for a full-on build out of a bakery or a restaurant or, you know, clothing store, whatever it is, investing, you know, $500,000. You can start by e-commerce platform. I love talking about Hot Hijab. So she makes the hijabs here. She was a Chicago-based attorney. Her name was Melanie L. Turk. And she was, you know, has the advantage of being the first to market and creating online e-commerce store for hijabs. So she began in her apartment in Chicago, just out of law school. And she began sourcing vintage hijabs. And now she manufactures, prints, and makes her own hijabs and distributes them worldwide. I know they just launched in London. They've had several successful rounds of funding. So I believe it's over $7 million in venture capital raised to grow their business. So, you know, what started as something small bloomed. And if she didn't take that risk of just being out there, creating something, identifying a need in the market, and then going for it, it wouldn't be what it was today. And while in Dearborn, we have many hijab shops, and now we see so many online hijab companies. In 2008 to 2012, Hot Hijab was the only one available. So while I lived on the West Coast, I would set my alarm every Tuesday morning because that's when the new hijab patterns dropped to ensure that I had access to her hijabs. And now, you know, what is it, almost 15 years later, it's, you know, a multi-million-dollar company that's now global. So I definitely say take the risk, start small if you can. It depends on your idea, and you know my experience and expertise is in small retail businesses. But if you can, if it's not, you know, a huge new tech idea, start small. Start with a small investment, see if you can flip that, and then continue to grow from there.
Okay, great. Let's check our Facebook if we have any additional questions. Yes, we do. how do you celebrate Ramadan in the US? So I know the timing of sunset is a lot different than it is here in the Middle East. So I don't know, what time are you breaking your fast? How do you celebrate it with family across the United States?
Yeah, that's great. So I'm so lucky that I'm back in Dearborn, where all my family lives. Both sides of my mom's family, my dad's family, all my aunts and uncles, all my cousins, so we're all here. We break fast just after 8 p.m. So it's a long day for us. And Imsak just passed, so we're now into our fast for the day. But it's how I imagine it would be in Lebanon, with large family gatherings, everyone hosting, taking turns with their iftar dinners. After the pandemic, the last 2 years were kind of sad because we missed out on that. It was a very introspective Ramadan, as they should be, but we really missed that communal aspect. But there's gatherings at the local mosques, at the Jameh. There's different prayers all throughout. So Dearborn has also the largest mosque in North America. So we're able to gather and pray there as well. And then, like I said, on the weekends, we have the Sahur festival where the streets come alive. So it's celebratory, it's family, it's community, it's gathering. And also we have great access to the masajid. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And the fact that you guys break your fast so late, it must be also like you also start fasting a lot later as well.
Yeah, it's about 5:30.
5:30, yeah. Okay, great. One last question. So how do you balance your roles between TechTown and Amanda's plate?
Yeah, so my days at TechTown is such an incredible place to work because, we're entrepreneurship hub. It's actually encouraged that people also pursue their other passions and their businesses. And we've had several colleagues, kind of do it part-time, their own businesses part-time, and then leave to do their businesses full-time. So I think when you're passionate about something, you find the time and you're able to manage. So whether that's, waking up at 6 a.m. to pursue talking to this incredible audience about the things you love and enjoy, or staying up late to bake and provide your products to different people in the community. It ebbs and flows though, you can't be in two places at once. But I very much am looking forward to the summer where I'll have more pop-ups and different content that I'll be putting out with different brands as we have more flexibility with work.
Okay, fantastic. I think that concludes the questions, but in closing, if you'd like to remind us of your social handles or how people can get in touch with you if they have any questions. Yeah, so across all social platforms, it's Amanda's Plate, AMANDAS PLATE. And that's, everything that's on my plate, not just the food that's on my plate. So you can send me a note anytime, any questions. I'm happy to connect you with resources if you're interested in, coming to the US, you want to start a business here. TechTown's happy to support as well. I'd love to stay in touch. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and for this incredible opportunity. I hope to see you all soon. Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. The thoughts, the inspired stories were fantastic today. So again, we thank you for attending the call. And for everyone on the call, thank you so much for joining us today on this live session with Amanda Saab. Thank you again. And Ramadan Kareem and happy Arab American Heritage Month. So thank you for that, guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much.